And welcome back in to another brand new episode of Tribal Council Chat. As always, we are your hosts. My name is Bruce Heller,
And my name's Blue Parnell.
and let's dive in. So, before we get into the recap and our thoughts on the episode, who is your player of the week? As we always start off. I couldn't hear you.
You want to go first, or do you want me to? You cut out
Go
for a
first.
second.
There you go. I can hear you again.
Okay, perfect. I'm gonna go a bit off the wall here. I think this will surprise some people. I think is gonna mean that we might have a different player of the week, but I'm gonna go with Couture this week.
Interesting. I would not have gone that way at all, but I kind of see where you're going to come from, I guess.
I'm gonna come from a couple of different angles. She clearly, I'm sure we'll talk about the reward quite a bit in this episode, but overcame a difficult moment, had
Yeah.
another one in the challenge, and managed to still succeed in that and move on. And then finally, I mean, we've been watching her attempt something since episode one and mission accomplished.
Yeah. It was a cool episode for her. A couple powerful emotional moments. I texted you while I was watching the episode, and this is probably in my notes, so we'll get to it. I just had the realization that the only thing she's done the whole game is want to target Bruce and had like no other plan or gameplay besides that. So I'm kind of interested to see what happens from her now that that's done. But
Yeah.
it was a cool episode for her. My player of the week is more gameplay based, and even though I was expecting this person to make a move that she didn't make, and she might have been in a better place if she did make, but I understand why it didn't happen. I'm gonna go with Emily, which
Nice.
I really expected her to flip on her ties with Reba, and I get like the next morning I was texting with my friend Kevin about it, and we were both kind of surprised by it. But later in the day, I just had this realization: she probably would have if she felt like there was an opportunity. You can't force Bruce Katura and Jake to work together. There's too much between the three of them. That just
If
ultimately
if
wasn't
you
going
wanted
to
to work
happen.
with them, you would have had to do it when Kelly was still in the game.
Well, and you just that move would require getting those three to work well together with each other, which just
Yeah.
wasn't in it. Because Bruce and Katura is obviously not going to happen. And then we might have gotten Jake in on it, but he felt all upset that Bruce lied to him, which we'll get to that. But Emily somehow convinces Bruce, who's the most obvious target in the world, to not play his idol and send him home. So good for her. And the fact that she kind of did that on her own, apart from Reba or apart from anyone else, that's a resume move for her. She gets the final three. So
Absolutely.
now there's 7 people left, and there's a really tight alliance of 4. So we'll see if she can get to the end. But
Yeah.
we'll see.
Interesting because the number four at this part of the game is so key because there's a tight alliance of four, but there's only 3 seats.
Yeah. But those 4 can get to 4 at least if they want to hold together.
Yeah.
And there's if those 4 decide they want to stay tight, there's nothing that Bruce, Katura, or Jake can do about it at this
Yeah.
point.
But then win immunity.
Yeah. Well, there's that. Easier said than done.
Much easier said than done.
So, what are your just before we dive into the full 4 recap? What are your just overall thoughts on this episode?
I thought it was a really interesting episode. I wasn't sure what way it was going to go. I think, I guess this kind of gives it away, but to wrap it up, it sums up the oldest mistake in Survivor, which is play your damn idol.
Yep. That was yeah. I could not believe I was watching that unfold. Part of me thought it was actually going to be Julie for some reason. Like I thought that was a real plan for a little while,
Yes.
but then the votes come in. She only has one vote on her. The rest are split between Bruce and Jake, and Bruce goes home. Masterful job by Emily, just convincing him not to play his idol. I was getting Micronesia and Eric Reichenbach flashbacks.
Yeah, that was great.
I take that back. I called Bruce the most obvious target in the world. Eric was the most obvious target in the world. And his was worse because he had the necklace that he won. He
Yeah.
wasn't even like, should I play an idol? Should I not? You already had the necklace.
Yeah.
But oh well. Yeah,
You can forward of watching that scene.
yeah. So my overall thought was obviously Bruce goes home. I still just don't get this or know why they think it's a good idea. Like they want him gone because he's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way and they don't want him around. But
Yeah.
you don't want to sit next to the guy at the end that's annoying people. Because I started
I
thinking
would.
about this, like if he had made the end, how would that have gone? And the only person I can think of that he might have gotten a jury vote from was Jake.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't going to be Caleb, and it wasn't going to be Kelly or Kendra. And
Exactly.
no one still in the game seems to be a huge fan, but him and Jake were tied at one point. So maybe he would have gotten Jake's jury vote. But why are we in such a rush to send Bruce home? He's the perfect
It
goat
does.
in the end.
It didn't make a lot of sense. There has to be more going on the island than we know, or maybe the players are just paranoid about the fact of his story from 44.
Yeah, true. And if
And
the
I
jury
don't see
were
how
made
that's
up,
such a big deal. I mean, I think Emily was right early on to say that he has experience, but at the same time, I think Bruce was right to say he doesn't have very much.
yeah,
It's he's there to play. He's not there to like it's not like he's walking out as Robin Redemption Island or something.
yeah, it was an interesting scenario. I really enjoyed Bruce this season. I thought there was
So
a
did I.
really cool, powerful moment from him last week where he's just kind of examining himself and was going to ask his wife and daughter if they feel the same way or if he really needed to make changes. So that was cool. But
I liked it.
diving into the
It was
recap,
great to see him come back and really get to experience the game for what it is, even though he didn't go all the way to the end after being cut literally after playing just minutes
yeah,
in the last game, because I know he was on the beach for 12 hours, but he was injured in that opening challenge and probably never really could do anything right from there.
yeah. Well, diving into the recap, the first note I have is that the previously on slash opening montage, which shout out to the 90-minute episodes because this is part of what came back now that we have 90 minutes that they had gotten rid of. They made a point to show us how everyone wanted Jake last week, which just coming off the previous episode, I wrote down they want us to see that Dee got what only she wanted last week.
Yeah.
That's how I felt about the previously on. But
Lead.
and so post tribal, we see a quote from Jake where he says he's back in the game as a player and not just a pawn. And the question I wrote down was, how does he plan to flip that around? Because pretty much nobody at this point seems willing to work with him or wanting to bring him in as anything more than you're a number.
It's tough to say because I kind of see it from two perspectives here. And in if we want to look at this season specifically, where we have this group of four that at least so far doesn't seem to be movable, I don't know how he says that. But at the same time, if we want to look at what really sums up like the new era versus pre-winners at War Survivor, there aren't really alliances anymore. There's these voting blocks for one to get you through one tribal, and all Jake has to do is find the right case to help the right people move forward in the game, and he's safe.
I would argue, and I agree with you, it's become a lot more prevalent in the new era, but I wouldn't necessarily call like this voting block concept a strictly new era thing. Because I remember the term voting blocks being called by Sierra, I think, on Cambodia, and it
Yeah,
was a big thing then. So new school for
it
sure.
certainly started to build. I just mean you. I think this Reba group is really the first long-term alliance we've seen in the new era.
Um, of this size, yes, Jesse and Cody were pretty tight from the
Yeah,
beginning until final whatever number Cody went home.
yeah.
But yeah, so the next scene we have is Julie just says she has this feeling of betrayal that she was left out and feeling like people don't trust her. And I think this is kind of where we see the game, how it wears on the contestants, not just physically from the environment and the not eating, but also mentally and emotionally from this crazy social experiment game you're playing. As we just see
Yeah,
Julie have a rough moment here, and I feel for her.
absolutely. Um, yeah, even though at this point they're on like what day 17, 18, it's still gotta be rough when some youth are misled and therefore aren't seeing it as a game because at this point it has become real life.
Yeah, and like
Though I can only imagine how much worse it maybe would have got in some seasons where we've seen like 39 or even in Australia, back a 42-day season
yeah,
where you'd be a month into that stress and things go wrong in your mind right at the end.
yeah, and because you think about it, it's the game itself is with the deception and the way Survivor as a game works is already something that could wear on you emotionally and just mentally. But you add in the physical and the not eating, which deteriorates your mind anyway, and it gets a lot worse. So
Absolutely.
feel for Julie here. I'm sure she can recover. She's good socially.
Yeah.
So the next note I have written down is if Emily and Bella want to try to flip on Reba, Julie would try to flip one of the Reba members. Julie would be a good target because she's feeling like she's the fourth out of four, and I'm kind of agreeing at this point.
Absolutely. Um, she would be a good target. The No offense to Julie, she's playing a great game, but the other three seem to be much more, at least from what we're getting, making decisions in the game that I think they might catch on to it easier. So I'd agree with you there.
Which is really funny that this is where we've landed, where D and the two guys are closer to each other, and Julie's the fourth. Because early on in this season, I definitely remember you and I having talking about Reba and saying this four feels more like two pairs than a
Yeah,
four, where it was Austin and Drew and then D and Julie. And at some point, D drifted away from Julie and towards the two guys. So
that has to do kind of with just what I was saying a few minutes ago, is those three seeds. There's not four seeds. And at some point you're gonna wanna I'm sure we're seeing these kind of slight movements, but I'm sure within that four, every single one of them has top three deals with every single player because that's how you play Survivor and get to the end.
yeah, true. So I what I have written down here is Emily is really starting to question her alliance with Reba early on here. And I just got excited seeing that because I sat here on our show after last week and predicted that she would flip on them this week. And I thought this was going to be the start of me being right. As we talked about earlier, it wasn't. She ends up sticking with Reba, but and so yeah, it was it's interesting seeing Emily's thought processes and how much she thinks everything out.
Yes, it is. It's like when we did our legends, I would put her in that category of like I did with a Rob or a Fishback or an Aubrey as a player that really is thinking about every minute detail of this game. And I know we did a poll today on our socials about who we think the front runner is. I know you said D. That's why Emily's my front runner still.
Yeah. And Dee had a much quieter episode this week than she did last week. I just didn't see anything. Emily's creeping up there. I just feel like it's still Dee from what we've seen over the season. It still feels like she's in charge of things. But so the next scene, we have Katura and Bruce walking on the beach together. And this scene becomes pretty wild, but it starts with Katura saying to Bruce, "I'm happy to be back working together." And the note I wrote down is, does he actually believe her when she says this? Because I don't feel like there's any way either of them believe the other one when.
No,
Why is this
this is
conversation even happening? Everyone knows those two don't like each other.
this probably just one of the like thousands of conversations that have happened over the day that production decided, hey, we need 30 seconds, maybe to throw a curveball at the viewers.
Yeah. And this conversation is what leads to a moment where I feel like Bruce really kind of sunk himself with a dumb mistake here. And I love the way they edited this because what I wrote down in all caps is Bruce gave his idol to Kelly, question mark, exclamation point, and then have a little bullet point under it that says, never mind, that's a lie. But like, of all the people you could test your lie out on, why are you like the person you're trusting with this, the person that like why is you taking this to the person that you don't like, that doesn't like you, that's been gunning for nobody but you and not playing the game at all other than targeting you for 9 episodes? Why is this who you're trusting with this secret of
It's
all
funny that
people?
you say that for this section in your notes, because in my notes, despite us having maybe in January, I wrote Bruce was right. Bruce, meaning you, was right a few weeks ago. Dot dot Philip Shepard.
Like, nice. Yeah, there's some comparisons there. Bruce is just kind of the more polished version, but
Yeah,
like I get wanting to test your lie out and make sure it's believable at first, but like of all the people you could have chosen, this is like the worst possible answer. Like it's a good plan from the lie is a good plan from him, and we'll get to it. And pretty much everyone else
test
that
it on
hears it,
either Jake or Julie, not on the person that's wanted to get rid of you since the first day.
yeah. And for what it's worth, because it wasn't a bad plan, everyone else that hears this lie from him believes it
Yeah.
until the girls come back from girls' night and blow it up that it was a lie. But
Yeah.
like, just really dumb decision of him to tell people there. But so what? Like, do you have any more thoughts from this kind of a wild conversation between the two of them here?
I don't really agree with what you said though.
Yeah. What I have written down was, is this like just on the note of Bruce's lie? Is this a smart move? I don't know, because on one hand, it has the potential to be a major move that can turn the game on its head in his favor, and he needs something like that. But on the other hand, I just feel like putting any time you're purposely putting votes on yourself is super risky,
Yeah.
especially in the new era. And in parentheses, I called the new era Jeff's Funhouse because you called it that when we were texting at some point in time. And that saying has
Even
always stuck with me.
and even if it wasn't, even not even just in like post 41, but when we look at what happened to like John in David versus Goliath or Janet in Island of the Idols. I mean, you don't want to be putting votes on yourself even if you do have an idol.
Yeah.
Because who knows if it's even going to matter.
And yeah. So about what you'd expect from Bruce. Like, I don't hate it as an idea. Like, maybe don't test again, definitely don't test it out on Katura. And maybe you don't need to test it on anyone. Just go with your gut and put the plan into the action and start telling people. Making sure he told Jake ended up being a good move because he knew Jake would go tell everyone. And that's exactly what Jake did. But so moving on, we actually had a reward challenge, not just an immunity challenge or a combined challenge, but we have a reward challenge, and this was a fun challenge.
It was. And we bring back the letters from home here too, which was really interesting.
We do, and
It's not every day in the Sense Winners that were that we get any sort of content regarding loved ones. So really gave us a new face of the telling us who is really in the game and what their personal lives are like outside.
yeah, totally. And also, this is a puzzle we've seen before, and it's just as nerve-wracking as it always is. The like on a table having to go through a maze while you're operating it with handles. The YouTube audience
Always
has got a
wondering how
great
they do that.
visual
I'm
of us
watching
mimicking.
it, I can't figure it out.
Yeah, the YouTube audience just got a great visual of us mimicking these handles. The audio audience missed out, but thank you. Shout out to the people listening to us on audio also. But Emily finally wins a challenge. Really cool moment for her. And we get this scene where she says people had told her that she hasn't been, and if they won, they were going to take her. But she made it there on her own by winning herself. And that was a really cool moment. And it's before the challenge. You mentioned the letters from home. All Probst told them before the challenge was overnight sleepover at the sanctuary and basically Thanksgiving food. He was more specific, but it was Thanksgiving food.
I mean, perfect timing.
After the challenge is when he goes, oh, by the way, we also have letters. And by the way, you get to take 3 people, but he makes her pick one at a time. So, and this is kind of interesting. She takes Julie and says Julie's been struggling with sleep in her neck and been missing home. She chooses Katura, and then she gets a third choice and she picks D, making it a girls' night. All the girls that are left in the game are going. And she cites that D talks about her family every day. So, what are your thoughts on these choices?
Sense. If you decide to do something like that and make it a girls' night, you can't really have anybody all that pissed off.
Yeah. What I have written down was like I get the whole girls' night thing, but with something like this, you can find legitimate reasons to justify any choice you make.
Yeah.
And I feel like this might have been an opportunity to try to make a move on Reba, like she had mentioned earlier. So, like, Julie would have been a good choice anyway if you want to try to flip her. But to try to pick a Jake or Katura, for example, and try to use this as a chance to take a shot at this powerful alliance. But, like, I get the girls' night thing. I just feel like it might have also been a missed opportunity to try to make it.
I didn't think of that when I was watching, but you're totally right.
Like, and obviously the girls' night, they had an awesome time. We got a great scene of the boys back at camp, which was just hilarious. But I mean, if you can take Julie, like obviously that's a great choice with everything she'd been dealing with. But if you take like Jake and Katura or Jake and Bruce, or really funny, Katura and Bruce together, like that might have been a chance to try to form something and take a shot at Reba instead of like the reward was a really fun night for everyone. It was kind of game free for a little bit, which was nice. And I'm sure they need that. But
And it's nice with 90-minute episodes too that we get to see those game free moments.
yeah. And like I said, I don't hate Emily's choice. Like in a moment like that, you really can't screw up because you can make a reason, you can give a reason to justify anything. But just a thought I had watching it. So we have, let's go ahead and go to the girls' night. The girls are at the sanctuary and the boys are at camp. What I have written down is, will either group decide to band together as a group of four? I didn't think it would. They didn't. But right off the bat, at the same,
Sense if the idea came up, but it never did. If they wanted a girls' alliance, they would have that plan would have came together when Kelly and Kendra were still in the game and it was talked about, and it never did. So
one of my favorite, funniest moments of the season for me was the episode where all the girls are at the shelter thinking like, hey, let's make a girls' alliance, being super strategic. And they say the boys are probably doing the same thing right now. And we shift to the beach and the boys are all talking about tacos. Like, such a funny moment, but that's the only time I heard anything about a girls or a guys alliance come up. But right off the bat at the sanctuary, Katura outs Bruce's lion, and on my notes I have two of the little like face palm emojis because I just genuinely don't get this. Like, it doesn't help. I get that she wants him out and has for 9 episodes. This doesn't help her game at all. Just getting him out and exposing his lie. This sometimes you need to work with people you don't want to.
possibly help her is if she thinks that she's on the top of the chopping block.
But I mean, Bruce and Jake have been the only people on the chopping block for like 3 episodes. She knows she's
No,
not.
I agree. I'm just saying, if in a hypothetical world she was, I could see it making sense. But in this case, I'm with you.
Yeah. And so my next note was kind of branching off of that. And I don't want to be too hard on her because she did have a really cool episode this week. And there's been moments where she has seemed like a really fun character in person. But I have written down Bruce has no plan at all other than trying to get Bruce out. It's complete tunnel vision. And I texted you at this point in the episode, there's no long-term outlook or plan past getting Bruce out. Like, I just genuinely don't know what she's done this season.
No, I can't answer that question either. Which is where I think that, like, yes, I'm picking her as my player of the week because she accomplished what she's been trying to do. But I also think at the same time that now she's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah. And while this is happening, we check in on the boys back at camp, and it's just a hilarious scene. I gotta grab my phone charger from my room. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll see me moving, but we're still going just fine. Sorry, I'm on my phone's hotspot, which is at like 4%. So, but the boys' night scene was absolutely hilarious. We get Top Gun music on there. We get them literally talking about burping for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just hysterical. Before we go back to the
some funny scenes when it's all guys that get stuck at camp together.
Or in San Juan del Sur, where it's Jacqueline stuck with.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Gosh, that was awkward. But yeah. So, and then we go back to the sanctuary for the girls' night, and they're reading their letters, and it's an awesome scene. And
I thought this was interesting because there's clearly a lot of controversy on it.
Yeah. But I mean, I enjoyed seeing just kind of the raw moments, and we get a special moment with each person. I believe the first one is Emily, who said that she'd always thought she never wanted to be married, but having these moments, like reading this letter from her boyfriend, legitimately has her rethinking that in a way she never had before. So that was cool. We see Katura get emotional over a letter from her mom, who she cut off about a year or so ago, I think she had said. and the effect that had on her and the effect it had on her mom. So really cool
That's
girl.
what I mean by controversial, because I know some people online are hammering production over this. From what I've heard from the players, you in at finals give the name of who you would like to potentially see, hear from while you're on the island.
Yeah.
So this clearly, at least unless they've changed the process, came from somebody in her family or her friends reaching out to her mom for this experience. Don't think that it's fair to blame Jeff or blame anyone else from production for doing something that Katura wouldn't have wanted without her consent.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. I didn't even know people were hammering production over that, but it seemed like it was at least to me, seemed like
it all day, so I've just been scrolling Twitter.
It kind of, to me, seemed like it was a positive moment for Katura. Like, I didn't get the sense that she was super upset about it.
That's what I thought.
Like it seemed like a loving moment to me. Like I really didn't get the feeling at all that she was upset there. And so moving along, because Zoom is timing us now, to the immunity challenge. And I wrote down, I find myself rooting for Jake to win this just to see the chaos that would ensue. Because Bruce is going to play his idol. At this point, I'm thinking Bruce plays his idol no matter what if he doesn't win immunity. And if that happens, Jake's the next target. I just wanted to see Jake win immunity to see what would happen. But
yeah, same as me.
Jake dropped.
But and I mean, it all could have happened if Bruce just did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah. And Jake drops early, so he was gone. Bruce gets down to the final two and drops. But the really cool moment that stuck out to me here was Katura, who was kind of afraid to drop because of the water. And so she gets off, goes over to the next platform. And when they're leaving, Probst says, like, it's become a tradition on water challenges. The players always swim into the beach. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. We'll bring the boat. But if you want to, feel free to try it. We'll be here all day. And it really reminded me of that moment with Suri on Game Changers that I've heard Probst say numerous times as one of his favorite moments ever. So
yeah, I thought of the exact same thing. That was one of what went into making her my player of the week.
And I think everyone watching probably thought of that moment too. But really cool moment. Again, we're on time, so I'm kind of trying to move quickly. Katura and Emily possibly wanting to target Julie, citing that anyone with mama in their name is going to be a jury threat, which is fair. And I really thought this was going to happen. I didn't realize this was a decoy plan for a while. But it ends up being a decoy plan because Emily used it as one to convince Bruce not to play his idol.
Yeah, and which is smart.
We get this weird argument between Jake and Bruce, and we got a Jake and Drew argument earlier that we don't have time to go into, but that was a scene that might come back of Jake and Bruce arguing because Jake's upset that Bruce told him that lie about the idol. But you kind of proved him right that you were gonna blab about it. So what if that had been the truth and you had just told that and it sunk his game? Of course he's gonna lie to you. So
anyway, what's your thoughts on the vote? Because we want to get an Ally Blindside First Boot done.
Yeah, and so the vote was about what we expected. So I really don't have a ton of notes from Tribal.
Yeah, it was what I thought too, but I think like I started early on in the episode with, if you have an idol and you're at risk, play it. That's the ultimate lesson to learn from this and from so many other tribal councils that go down in history.
And real quick, before Align Blindside First Boot, I love the raw emotional scene of Jake and how much he was struggling with the game and constantly feeling like he's just not good at anything. And Bruce, of all people, who he had just had an argument with, coming to comfort him. That was really cool. So, who are your three for Align Blindside First Boot?
I am gonna do something that I don't even know if this is fair, but I'm gonna give you a complex Align Blindside for Spook today. This
Okay.
episode was the closest that we've ever got, probably, and may ever get again to a loved one's visit. So here's your options: Boston Powers, Shane's son, Eddie George, Tasha's husband, or Kim Fitzgerald, Michelle's sister.
Okay, so the unknown is Boston Powers. Because, I mean, we see Kim Fitzgerald on Instagram, and Eddie George is fairly well known. So I'll first boot Shane's son just because that's the wild card that I don't want to have to try to figure out in the game. I will blindside Eddie early merge, but so that he will help me stay away from tribal pre-merge, which leaves me aligning with Kim as the only option left.
Yes. I am going to also align with Kim. I've met her. She's so nice to chat with.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm going to do the opposite of you, blindside Boston. He was great to see as a young kid getting that experience in camp. I would love to see him play the game as an adult.
Yeah.
And that leaves me to first boot Eddie because, I mean, I've told you my dad's a Michigan fan. I have to blindside first boot an Ohio State player.
That's hilarious. So I had a theme that I was really expecting us to have the same theme this week, which is people that went home with idols in their pockets. And I have James Clement, who went home with 2 idols in 15, which I have to mention that move was engineered by Amanda Kimmel. So I love James, but shout out Amanda. Kelly Wentworth went home with an idol in her pocket in 38. And the third one is someone who legitimately could have won their season and was in a really solid position until they went home with an idol in their pocket, and which is Sophie Clark on Winners at War.
Interesting.
She was looking really strong.
She was. I'm gonna take your strategy here. Sophie's the only winner, so she's got to go.
Yep.
I am going to blindside James. He always makes a great joke, and align with one of your favorites, Kelly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also blindsiding James. He's a monster at the physical game, so that'll help me stay away from tribal pre-merge. Yeah. And I have to align with Kelly. That's the dream. So unfortunately, Sophie goes first, but she's the only winner, so she goes first anyway.
Well, great episode.
It was. This was
we got a few seconds. Do you want to mention about next week?
Yeah, so next week Brett will be unable to watch the episode. He'll be on a cruise. So we will have a guest co-host. I believe it's going to be Kyle Dorr. So I'm looking forward to chatting with Kyle, hopefully. If not, we'll have somebody here talking Survivor with me. But subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram. Head back to camp, guys. Have a great week.
And I'll be back in Ottawa to chat to you about the finale when we're back.
Yep, which will have a finale preview and a finale recap. So
absolutely
extra content for you guys. Have a great week.
See you.